So, where do you fit in the puzzle of life? You see, if you're anything like me, perhaps you haven't quite found your space in the world yet. You haven't quite found your corner, your purpose, your mission. You've always felt perhaps a little bit lost in this chaotic world that we live in. And in my opinion, that's very much by design, but as we'll get into. But in this podcast, I want to shed light on perhaps why you keep on procrastinating, why you keep on self-sabotaging, why you just can't seem to get anywhere in this life. And hopefully I can present a new paradigm for you to look through, to look at the world in a different light, and look at yourself in a different light, and to see where you can fit, you as an individual puzzle piece, in the grand scheme of society, and play your part. Now also, I have a special treat for you, gentlemen, but in order for you to properly appreciate it and understand it, you'll have to wait until the end, and I'll give that to you like completely free. And it's going to be very, very useful, and it's a massive corner cut in life. I'll just say that, right? I'll just say that, but I'll explain it a little bit more later. So as always, gentlemen, I want to do a little personal updates bit right before we get in, just for a couple of minutes. So, yeah, I mean, this week has been a week of epiphanies for me, which I intend to reflect upon on this podcast. It's just the same old, like, day in, day out. I mean, I'm trying to face the fears I feel on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes I win the battle, sometimes I lose it, it's fine. But it's just about self-development. I want to build up my friendship circle as well. I want to get more social, because I realise for me, like, a lot of the time, right, the opposite of contentment is lack, right? Because what's contentment? It is happiness with what you have. It's being at peace, but that lack that we seem to almost constantly feel in modern day society is just it takes over, you know. And but sometimes it is valid as well, like, you know. And one of the things I've been lacking is perhaps more proximity to the other, and that's something I want to kind of fix, build a nice friendship group and stuff. So yeah, that's just something I've been focused on recently, facing my fears, killing the boy. You boys know the deal. But anyways, boys, so here's the thing. So God made society as a puzzle, or he made this world as a puzzle. And we are all separate little pieces. You know, everyone's like this uniquely shaped puzzle piece that has a very specific point. You know, when you finish the puzzle and you just have that last piece that perfectly slots in, right? Everyone is like that, right? Everyone can find that perfect position just for them to slide in perfectly, and everything just flows and works, and everything's structured, and the cogs whir and the machine turns on. That's what society can be like, right? And how do I know this? Well, I've been an amateur student of physiognomy for the past few months. Physiognomy being the art of face reading, right? Well, it's a bit more complex than face reading, but it's essentially, you know, adjudicating someone's character through the physical features upon their face, right, and their head, their skull shape, so on and so forth. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm very bad at it, but in studying it, it's revealed a few truths to me, and that is very much that we all have individual societal roles within the grander scheme of society. And to put it bluntly, there has been almost no effort to actually get the right people in the right places, you know, because fundamentally I think that should be the main operating system of a government at large, is getting the right people to do the right jobs. And then everyone just, you know, everything works. It's like a system, right? But unfortunately that's not quite the case. But yeah, you kind of see that there are certain people who are more like system-based thinkers, who, you know, you want certain jobs. There's certain people who are a bit more intuitive. Perhaps you want more creative pursuits or spiritual pursuits. And some people are a bit more direct and actionable, which you want in a bit more, you know, action-orientated pursuits. And it all kind of, you know, it's like this beautiful orchestra, you know, conducted by the divine, right? And together that they make a symphony that, you know, soars up to the heavens in its beauty. But unfortunately, everything is just a big, confused, disgruntled mess in the modern day, because there is no effort to, you know, put everyone in their correct place in this grand puzzle. And everyone just kind of, they try to shove everyone through this one mold, this one path. And if you don't fit, fuck off, you know what I mean? You get off the production line. It's that sort of thing. It's just a conveyor belt pushing everyone through. And, you know, there's a lot of men who've kind of fallen off that conveyor belt, like myself, and it's kind of like, well, what do you do then? But yeah, So that's the thing. It's kind of like, so say if you know, we have this big puzzle piece and everyone's their own separate puzzle, their own unique shape, proclivities, so on and so forth. Does that make everyone special? Well, no, and also yes. You see, everyone is unique in that aspect, so everyone is special. But then because everyone's special, no one is special. But brain fuck aside, or mouth fuck aside, yes, if you choose to be. You can choose to be special, but you can also choose to not be special. You see, you have an imprint in this life. You have a DNA genetic code for your existence that has strengths, that has weaknesses, that has proclivities, that has vices, that has virtues. And according on your actions in the infinite possibilities of this beautiful world we live in, you can achieve perhaps like a higher manifestation of your potential in which you would be considered special. But you could also crash and burn and fail, and which would be considered not special. But for me, the fundamentally most important thing is in achieving this, and because obviously we want the highest manifestations of our potential, right? We don't want to fail, right? We want to do the best we can in this world, and serve the other, so to speak, in this grand puzzle. And how we do that is alignment. We want to do what we're meant to do. If we were meant to be a ballerina, we don't want to be going, as a street fighter, although maybe with the footwork there's a bit of overlap. But you see what I'm saying? We want to do what we were meant to do in accordance with our talents and proclivities and strengths, catering for our weaknesses. So, for example, Logan Ninefingers, who's a character in Joe Abercrombie's First Law trilogy, which is a fantastic, fancy book series I recommend reading. But he kind of has this ongoing battle, right? He is this huge, scarred Northman who is essentially called the Bloody Nine. And he's one of the scariest men. People hear his name and shit themselves. But obviously, you have the POV in his head, and he's not as scary in his head, and he has a very soft side, and he always tries to be a good man, but the blood just always seems to find him. The battle always returns. His fingers just always seem to curl round his sword once more. And eventually, well, perhaps minor spoilers, Nine Fingers, one of his sayings is, you have to be realistic. And in being realistic, he says, reckon you have to be what you are. There's no point fighting against it. And he, unfortunately, for himself, was a killer. And he had this moral battle, but at the end of the day, he had to just give in and accept himself for what he is. And you see us in the modern day because we have these standardized ideals. We have people saying this is how we should be. Right, you should be X, you should be Y, you should be an influencer, you should be, academically inclined, so on and so forth. But the thing is, some of us aren't that. So what then? Do we go against our nature for that? And this is kind of like the importance of authenticity, where everyone, talks about the importance of authenticity, and they're completely spot on. This is why you have your own unique. I mean, even just imagine, like for example, we have our own unique fingerprint, right? Everyone has their own fingerprint. Everyone has their own face. Everyone has their own voice. We each have a different shade in this rainbow of the world. So with that in mind, we are completely different. And here's the thing, right? When you look at a stunning work of art, for example, I saw a painting recently. I believe it was Sir. I know his second name was Dixie, which was a bit of a questionable second name, hence why I remembered it. But the painting was called The Two Crowns, and it was absolutely stunning painting. I recommend looking it up just so you can kind of understand here. But it basically pictures a grandiose king with some, ornate armor, and basically loads of maidens like trying to shove flowers at him, and he's just kind of looking at Jesus crucified with a fairly melancholic stare. But it's a beautiful painting, and you can kind of look at it and you can understand what I'm saying in the fact that beauty is contrast. Beauty is contrast. There will be no beauty without contrast. What is contrast? Contrast is difference. You see, imagine a painting that is just one colour. How boring would that be? Now you might think, oh well, what if perhaps they had different textures and whatever, and you can kind of make a picture out of different textures. You can get creative, but even that different texture itself is still contrast because it's still difference. Do you understand? It's just not contrast in the form of color. So you can't really have art and beauty without contrast, and that reflects the same onto the human race. Is that the human race, the piece of art that it most certainly is? I mean, we are the highest of creation. Make no mistake. I mean, just for a quick example, like you can take some of the most beautiful cathedrals. For example, I visited Exeter Cathedral recently, which is stunning, beautiful Gothic cathedral, absolutely gorgeous. But one human life of even the most sinful man is worth more than that entire cathedral. That is how beautiful humans are. And if you want to disagree with me and say, no, I wouldn't want to see that beautiful Gothic cathedral razed to the ground for one, sinful man, I'd ask you, what would Christ do? And you know the answer. So that is the extent of which humans are beautiful. And like we said, if contrast is beauty, we as humans need to be different. Okay? But you see society, this fairly malicious movement, which is most certainly deliberate, wants us all to be this one homogenized ideal, right? They want us all to look the same. Well, actually, they want us to perhaps look a little different on the outside, but we're all the same internally. We all think the same thoughts. We all have the same fake hobbies. We all go on the same social media apps. We all date online. We all drink. We never connect, though. That is something we also have in common. They want us to degrade of our humanity. They want to take that puzzle piece with all its unique edges and just shave it into one square and put it all together like robots on an assembly line. Erode the beauty in the world. That is what they want to do. You see, but we as individuals have a responsibility to not let that happen. Although it may be difficult, especially in the modern day, being a unique individual to express it, because perhaps, especially in the England with tall poppy syndrome, you may fear judgment, you may fear piss taking. You may fear the instability that comes from walking one's own path. But again, I want to iterate that faith, my friend, you know what I say is right. You know you have to live authentically. You have to, emanate your very being onto this world. You know I'm right. But the only thing stopping you from doing that is fear. Doubt. You're scared of judgment, but faith supersedes that, my friends. Now, I want to ask you this question, actually. What does the perfect day in the life of a human look like? What is the perfect day? Just think about that for a second. And if you're thinking right now about an actual day, or, wakes up at 6 a.m., puts his face in, an ice bath and then drinks his water. No. You're being a bit of a moron, forgive me for saying. Because there is no such thing. We are all so different. And like I said, that makes us beautiful, but we are all so different. So to even pretend that there is such a thing as a standardized way to live life, in this world of infinite possibility, in this world that, just look at a tiger. Look at his elegant stripes and his sharp fangs and retractable claws, and its ability to jump 12 feet in the air. Muscles like pistons. 500 pounds of mass. And that has just evolved. That is one of the possibilities of this realm. Don't even get me started, right? We have 60-foot giant squid in the oceans that have just evolved. 60 feet long. Can you imagine that? Insane. Absolutely insane. And you're telling me that there is just a standardized way to live life for a human. No, you have to live this certain way. No, you have to go to your job. No, you have to go back. But the thing is, when you stray from this path, everyone looks at you like a fucking madman. Oh, what? So you don't have a 9-to-5 job? What do you do then? How do you participate in this dystopian society that we all pretend is glorious? What do you do? I have faith. And even though my money goes down, I still have a smile on my face. I don't care. God will provide. I live for God. God will live for me. There's nothing to worry about, my friends. God is with you. And if God is with us, who can stand against us? It's simple. It's so simple when I say it like that, but of course it's very difficult to live in real life. I know it is, but there is no standardized way to live life, and don't let anybody tell you that. You don't have to wake up at a set time. You don't have to eat a certain way. You don't have to take a cold shower. You don't have to even exercise if you don't want to. You just do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. Of course, you have responsibilities, you have missions, and so on and so forth. And, that is going to shape, we like I said, we're not just like all day eating shit and so on and so forth and, scrolling on TikTok, whatever. You have responsibilities. But it's down to you about how you achieve those. Don't let anybody tell you what you should do or shouldn't do, right? It is down to you. But what are a couple things, right, that can stop us from finding out who we really are? And like I said, where we fit in this puzzle piece of life. And another thing which we've kind of alluded to before is the virtue signal trap. The people who live their lives for social media. Now, I call these people a very specific thing. Cardboard cutout people. Because you see them from their front, and they're glorious, they're glamorous, they're sparkling. They look incredible. But then you walk past them, right? And you see them from the side. And they are utterly flat. There is nothing to them. We all know these people who we see online, and we think these people are, gods among men. And then you meet them in real life, and there is nothing to them. There is nothing behind those eyes. They live purely to supplement the frontal image. That is all they do. That is all they live for. They don't live about what they actually want. They live what they want people to see. And they live to supplement that. And this virtue signaling that people do, I live life this way. I take these photos, I put them on social media to look a certain way because I want people to view me in a certain light. Fuck all that, mate. Bin social media, delete it if you have to. If that's what it takes, because I'm not going to pretend like I haven't fell victim to this, right? I have that voice in my head of like, whenever I do something, oh yeah, come on, show this online, get some validation and so on and so forth. I have that voice in my head too. I'm not saying I've never given into it either, but be aware of it and understand where it leads, because you don't want to be a cardboard cutout person, mate. Can't think of anything worse than that. And another thing we have to watch out for, gentlemen, it's ego. The scripture says he traps them in their own cunning. You see, ego does creep up on you. It really does creep up on you. And this is something I've kind of realised recently because, I consider myself overly humble. And then I kind of realised, you know what, I'm actually not that humble. Because ego does creep up on you without you noticing. And you need to be very careful of that. You really do need to be very careful. And here's one thing the kind of reason ego has crept up on me is because potential is an achievement. You see, if you're an outlier in modern day society, you're going to fill up like either one end of the bell curve. You're going to be someone who, a hyper achiever, or you're going to be some criminal rotting in some dungeon. That's all, like some bum in your mum's basement. That is how it's going to work. So obviously you have massive potential, but also massive potential to fuck up. So here's the thing. Potential isn't achievement. You cannot fall victim to basing your ego on the potential in which you have. Because you haven't achieved anything. You could have the greatest potential. Oh, I'm going to be so good. Years go by. I've got the greatest potential. I'm going to be so good. Years go by. And then all of a sudden you're staring death in the face and you've done nothing. But you've had this ego this whole time. This ego has tricked you. It has tricked you into just whispering, oh, you're so great. You're so great. And that greatness and that illusion of greatness has stopped you from actually doing anything in this world. So I just want to be careful of that, gentlemen. Humility is the seed that sprouts wisdom. Embrace the humility. But yeah, purpose, right? And I just want to talk a little bit about purpose now. So purpose, fundamentally, what is it, right? What is it? Everyone says, oh, we have a purpose in this realm, right? Purpose is, like I said, if you look at that, that puzzle of society, it is your little square in there that you have to fit in, your little shape which you perfectly fit into. So purpose is alignment. Alignment with who you truly are. Say, for example, you're not a man who's meant to be a perhaps a soldier, but you end up being a nurse. No, you end up being that soldier, right? It's about alignment, right? It's about doing what you're supposed to do, your divinely assigned, ordained task in this realm. That's what it's about. And you'll notice when you're slipping out of routine or impulsively indulging in these instant gratifications or mass procrastinating, the reality is, mate, you're probably not doing what you're meant to do. And that is hard to take because I've been there, I've started up so many things, so many little businesses, so many like channels. I've even tried a podcast before, right? But you have to appreciate some of these things are not meant for you, right? And that's the thing. The reason why you're trying to subconsciously fill yourself with vices, right, is because you're unfulfilled with virtues. You're not being fulfilled by that fulfilling work. And here's the thing, right? Your subconscious has 1,000 different ways to sabotage the incorrect path, the misaligned path. Your brain on a subconscious level knows that you're not doing the right thing, and it will sabotage it for you. Nope, unlucky buddy, nope. We are vaping tonight. Like, it will do that. It honestly will do that. I know it sounds quite comical, but it actually will do it. And it's not fun. It's not fun being trapped in that cycle of like, you self-deprecate because you just impulsively indulge, and then you try and work again and you can't work, and then you do it again, and then it's a horrible little trap. It's like being caught in the barrel of a wave. It's not pleasant. It is not pleasant. But that's one thing. Like, you want to almost be fatherly to yourself, because there's these different voices in our head, or at least my head anyway. Might need to check a therapist, but no, we all have voices in our head, right? And we have that almost like a Christ-like voice in our head, who always wants the best for us, always pushes us to like chase our fears and to work hard and to do well. And that voice is very good. And you want it to be almost fatherly and why I say fatherly is because a father isn't, well, a good father anyway, isn't just like, castigating and reprimanding, and dishing out punishments left, right, centre. No. Of course, a father is kind of like, in a way, a human manifestation of God, right? I mean, how does God treat you as a man? He teaches you lessons in certain ways, sometimes gentle, sometimes harsh. The same way a man is responsible to do that for children. And, well, perhaps also women, but different conversation, right? So that is why fatherly, there is a time and a place for a more harder hand. You want to be a bit more sterner sometimes. But then sometimes there's also a case for it's all right, mate. I'll pick, dusting your son off, picking him up, say, that's okay, mate, you tried, that's fine, don't worry, we'll be back. There's time for castigating and reprimanding, and there's time for, being calmer, being nicer to yourself, because especially if you're someone that's a bit misaligned, you've tried plenty of things are going to go wrong, and you have to kind of be kind to yourself, because you have to appreciate you are trying ultimately, and you have to be almost fatherly to yourself in that respect. Be patient with yourself. It's not all going to happen overnight. Just keep trying, pick yourself up, and sometimes you're taking the piss and you're like, fucking sort yourself out, mate, right? But then sometimes you tried, you actually did try your hardest, and it just didn't work out, and that's fine. You have to be fatherly. That's what I'm saying. Don't be too harsh to yourself. But generally speaking, right, when you're working on your passion, right, or what you perceive to be your purpose, it shouldn't feel like fighting against the tide. It should feel like riding the wave, right? When you're in the ocean sometimes and you swim a certain way and it feels like impossible, right? Because the tide's against you, or you're in a rip current, and it's just impossible to move anywhere, right? That's what it's like working on something that isn't your purpose. But then all of a sudden, say you switch directions and you just fly, right? That's what it's like working when you're aligned with your purpose. You want to ride the wave, not fight against the tide. And when this is, sometimes you'll do the best work you've ever done, right? And you would just absolutely bang it out effortlessly in record time. And then some ways, like, you'd be trying to read a book and it'll take you half an hour to get through 2 pages. You know, that is fighting against the tide. Whereas sometimes you'll bang out, like, I don't know, whatever it is, a video script, 2,000 words in like in 20 minutes. Well, not 20 minutes, but a very short time, right? And that's the thing. You want to follow the wave. And what is the wave? What is the wave? The wave is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. What are you enthusiastic about? What excites you? What gives you energy to do? What is easy to do for you? That is what you want to follow, my friend. That, if you follow enthusiasm, that is going to take you along the path which informs you about who you are. Enthusiasm is an indicator of the correct path. Are you enthusiastic about what you do at the minute? I mean, imagine even just going into a British high street and asking anyone that question. What percentage of people can be like, oh yeah, no, I fucking love flipping these burgers, mate. Oh yeah, no, filing these tax reports. It tickles my pickle, I'll tell you that. Oh yeah, mate, you know what? I love organising this marketing. Fucking hell. Gives me a semi, like, genuinely, like, no one's going to say yes, because like I said, we're kind of like, you have this puzzle and people are just putting random bits anywhere. Oh, DEI, we'll put this one up here. Oh, another one up there, another one up there. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, let me just put them up. I'm thinking, right, I've got to settle down. But you see my point, right? You see my point. And here's another thing, right? I saw Usyk say, fantastic fight to Alexander Usyk. I saw him saying it in a clip the other day. It's not about motivation. I'm not going to try that. Sorry, I'm getting too excited. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. And he is right. He is right fundamentally. But the thing is, all of that is a building. And what's most important is the foundation. And what is the foundation upon which this is built? The foundation of love. If Usyk did not love to be a boxer, right, it wouldn't matter about motivation or discipline, because he would be fighting against the tide. And you can never beat the tide, my friend. You would have never heard of the name Alexander Usyk if he did not love boxing. I want to prove this to you, actually. So, AI. I asked AI to give me just I tried to make it as unbiased as possible. I was like, I literally pretend like this is just a random person, no bias at all. There probably was still a bit of bias, and I got AI to summarize Alexander Usyk in a paragraph based on his astrology and numerology. And I'll just read this out to you, and I want you to think whilst I'm reading this, what type of person is, who is this meant to be? If this person was a puzzle piece, where would he fit in society, right? So, born under a Capricorn with a 7 life path, this individual is built for endurance, discipline, and inner mastery rather than spectacle. There is a strong sense of self-command and patience, suggesting someone who advances through consistency, structure, and long-term focus instead of bursts of force. The numerology points to a solitary, inwardly driven nature, someone motivated by understanding, meaning, and internal standards rather than external validation. Externally, they project calm and authority and control, but beneath that is a deeply analytical, almost monastic temperament. Overall, this is the profile of a quiet strategist, resilient, mentally rigorous, and difficult to destabilize once in motion. Now, whilst I've read that, who do you think this person could have been? Maybe a nurse? Maybe a beauty influencer? No. You can see why this man is a great boxer, because who this person is, disciplined, strategic, monastic temperament, that is meant to be a boxer, right? That's a person who's meant to be a boxer or a similar pursuit. So Usyk, if he was not shaped to be a boxer, if his imprint was not a boxer, and he didn't have that foundation of love for boxing because he was good at it naturally, he would not have been where he is. And of course, I'm not taking anything away from he is, because there has probably been several, thousands of people born with Usyk's potential who haven't lived up to it. So I'm not taking away anything from the man at all, because he still has the motivation, he still has the discipline, and he still has the, what he's done in the sport of boxing is incredible. I'm not taking anything away from him. But of course, you have to understand that certain people are meant for certain things, and certain people, you know, are meant for other things as well. Like for example, like I said, your nurses and beauty influencers of the world, or maybe a misfits, but probably they're not best for boxing, right? They're probably not best to be combat athletes. But so that's the kind of point I wanted to make. We love to do what we're good at because it's what we're meant to do with our God-given talents. But you have to understand this world doesn't want you to find them. So this is where we get onto our little treat, right? And this is how to find your talents in this modern world because it's very messy, very, very messy, and it's actually very difficult because you have to understand you live in your head. You've got this first-person POV at all times, and we all, no matter like how intelligent, I'm not saying like I'm intelligent, whatever, but just generally how intelligent we are. We have our psychological blind spots, right? And there's things we can't see, and it's almost like you need to look at it through like a third person lens to actually understand yourself a bit more. Because I guarantee you, right, if you do what I'm about to tell you to do and you properly commit yourself to it, you will find out things about yourself that you've never actually realized before, and you'll be like, oh shit, and it's going to have immediate positive impact in your life, and you're going to be able to see which puzzle piece you are and where you're meant to go a lot clearer, right? It's going to make a lot more sense to you, going to give you a lot of ideas. I'm not going to say it's going to give you every answer, right? But it's going to set you off on the right path or the right general direction, and you can figure out from there. So what I've essentially done is put together a little questionnaire. And this questionnaire is just on a document. It'll be in the link in either the description or the comment section or something, whatever, because there's different platforms. If all fails, it'll be on my Twitter. The link in the description. So, and I'll read out a couple of the questions, right? It's just generally very introspective questions. And I want you to like look at these when you're answering these, put time and care into them, and a lot of thought. Maybe you can even ask your parents and stuff or people around you for the certain ones. And like, you really just understand yourself, what you actually want to do, what you enjoy doing, what aligns with your being. So, for example, I'll just read them out very quickly and you can kind of get an idea what they are. So, if you had a free day and a bit of money spare, what would you do? When your mind wanders, what do you think about? What did you gravitate towards when you were a child? What do you naturally do when procrastinating? When do you feel powerful? When do you feel useless? When should you have lost but won? When should you have won but lost? What can you do effortlessly? What do you really struggle with? How could you design your life so you thrive, mitigating weaknesses and maximizing strengths? Design your perfect life regardless of constraints and responsibilities. What does it look like? If you were a tool in God's hands, what would he use you for? If you were a tool in God's hands, what would he use you for? And that could be the most important question, and that could, quite frankly, sum up this whole podcast. If you were a tool in God's hands, what would he use you for? Because we're all tools. And you wouldn't use a hammer as a cuddly toy for a little girl, would you? That hammer would most certainly feel misaligned and discontent. But if you gave that hammer to the calloused hands of a builder and he was smashing in nails all day, that hammer would be gleeful. Okay? You are a tool. You need to figure out what that tool is best used for in this world by introspectively analysing these questions. But this is not all. You see, this is like a little shortcut, a door which has been opened to us by the somewhat seductive siren song-esque doors of AI. Who knows where this is going to go, but it's, this is a very interesting tool. It's a little bit controversial, but so essentially what you want to do is, I'll put the prompts in this document just after the questionnaire, but you want to ask AI about your astrology charts, and your numerology charts, and just ask it to be very, very unbiased. Because honestly, like say AI, like if you're someone who loves being a fairy princess and is always talking about AI about fairy princesses, and you ask it this question, it's going to say, "Oh my God, you're astrologically meant to be a fairy princess with glitter." And no, that is literally going to reflect what you want to say right back to you. So you have to say, "Mate, cut the codswell up, right? Tell me the the absolute objective truth about this. No bias at all." and then you can actually get something from it. Because otherwise, it will just tell you what you want to hear, and you'll be like, oh, I was meant to be a fairy princess all along, but you're like a fucking 400-pound hairy bloke, right? Anyway, so what you want to do is just input your birth name, birth date, birth time, birth location, and ask for a comprehensive astrological and numerological reading. And you can essentially read through that, and you can discover. And here's the thing: some people may be a bit skeptical. Trust me, astrology, numerology, these things are completely legit. That they are, mate. Honestly, have a little play around with them. You realize it's crazy, and AI has kind of opened up this world to us. Like previously, you would have had to like study, crazy amounts and learn like a lot of these esoteric formulaic studies. But now AI can do it for you, and it's relatively accurate. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, right? But it is relatively accurate. And yeah, it's kind of opened up a crazy new door for us. And another thing, like as I mentioned, is physiognomy. But physiognomy, you can't really get AI to do that, I see it anyway, in a reliable manner. I mean, what I've had my face read, there's a gentleman called Jack of Faces on Twitter who does do them, but they're a paid option. I would say it's worth it because, but it's your option, honestly. I'm not affiliated or anything, but if you're interested in face reading, that's who I'd recommend. But it's the things with face reading is that, like, obviously astrology is based on like the placement of stars at your time of birth and location and so on and so forth, and numerology is more based on like your name and stuff like that, and your birth date, and time, so on and so forth. But physiognomy is very much an up-to-date thing. Physiognomy, you can like look at someone's face, and like people's faces change over their life. You can see where they're deviating from this imprint. You can see, certain perhaps synergies that they're falling victim to. Maybe they're quite wrathful and angry. Maybe they're quite sad. Maybe they're quite happy. And physiognomy, you can kind of see this in real time, and it can see things that, perhaps your, astrology and numerology charts won't. So I would recommend that. But if you're tight budget, mate, those two will do as a starter, your astrology and numerology. So, I mean, once you've done that and you've read through it, you can, I mean, the thing is, obviously, with information and stuff, it's a bit dodgy. So it's down to you. You can ask, ChatGPT to save that as data, as like the person you are, and then, everything, all the questions following that are kind of filtered through the idea of like they're speaking to that person from that numerology and astrology chart, which I'm sure you'll find is eerily accurate to yourself. And you can kind of, get a better picture of who you are and your own proclivities and certain things that you might have felt but not perhaps put a label to. And it makes a lot more sense, right? It makes a lot more sense. So you can kind of do that. And I'll put the full prompts and all the instructions on this document. And that's another option. If you do those two things, please put effort into the self-discovery questionnaire. I know it's something that you can so easily half-arse, but you're not going to get anything from it. I know it's quite a difficult thing, kind of combing through your life like that. You have to put a bit of effort, but trust me, it's worth it. So yeah, gentlemen, I'll include that questionnaire link or the document with everything on after. And I hope you enjoyed today. And those who watched the first episode know we have a little tradition where we just finish with a prayer. So I'll do that now. So gentlemen, if you can get somewhere quiet for a second and kind of just fall in a bit of a meditative stance, a trance rather, that'll be nice. Nice and at peace, right? Nice and relaxed. That'll be good. If not, just try and feel your heart, as I like to do during prayer. So in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, help us find our path in this confusing world. We pray for the world at large, and we pray that people find their correct places in this grand puzzle of life. Please guide us in our own individual battles and help us inform us about who we are and what we're meant to do in this beautiful realm. May we be a tool in your hands, Lord. We love you and serve you. Help us keep our faith and keep our strength. Archangel Michael, defend us in battle. Mother Mary, help us integrate our anima. And Jesus Christ, help us love. And God, help us be the best man we possibly can. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Keep trying, gentlemen. God bless.